A very good afternoon and welcome to Awake TV. My name's Alan Taylor-Shearer. Going to be bringing you 2 hours of information, news and views. Lots of opinions. I'm going to be joined on the sofa by Dave Eden. We're going to be having a chat later on. I've got a Skype interview that's about to come up just now with Neil Foster. And we talk about the elections that went on recently and show you some of the rigging footage that's been doing the rounds on the net, but we also comment on it and look beyond just the footage. Also, some of you out there who who've been watching from the start will know that I've been wearing a variety of T-shirts. Well, I'm now in the uniform black T-shirt, which kind of makes me look like Neil Foster in that respect, but that's about as far as it goes. However, the Illumi-shirty messages. Some of you were wondering if I was passing on messages via my T-shirts. Well, if you want to take that one and make something from that, if you can get a conspiracy going, that would be great. So there you go. There's today's T-shirt. You're now fully updated. And those of you who know what that means, anyway, let's get into this interview now. I recorded this earlier on with Neil Foster, who's now across the pond in the USA. And this is his views and thoughts on the recent Scottish independence elections. Well, after the recent Scottish election, there have recently been released a number of videos showing possible vote rigging and ballot stuffing, and we're going to be looking at some of those videos shortly. But first, via Skype, we have Neil Foster, who's going to chat to us about this, and he's calling from Florida. Neil, great to see you.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
So you sent me a link to some of these videos. Tell me about it.
Well, I mean, there's 3 sections to that video. The first one clearly shows a lady taking some ballots from the yes pile and putting them in the no pile. Now, I'm sure they'll just come back and say, oh, she just made a mistake. But, well, if she made a mistake, how many more mistakes did she make?
Yeah.
And how many other people were making mistakes, in inverted commas. The second part of the video clearly shows at least 2 piles of yes votes on the no table. Now, I've since heard that the guy who was running the yes campaign there in Dundee has said, "Oh, that's okay. They were just resting on that table before being counted." Now, why would you put them on a table where you're going to have to place ballots? You would put them on a separate table if they were waiting to be counted, because you're going to have to clear them all off that table to start with.
Yeah.
And put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's nonsense. So you have to wonder what the yes campaigners are on about. You'd think they'd be jumping all over this and saying, hold on a minute, there's something wrong here. And the third part of the video clearly shows somebody putting marks on ballot papers, which is totally illegal. And yet the police are only investigating, supposedly, 10 cases of personation, as it's called, whereby 10 people have turned up to vote in Glasgow and been told they've voted already. 10 votes, that's all they're concerned about. They're not concerned about piles of yes votes on the no table. The whole thing stinks, and I don't really know what's going on, because I thought they'd fix it to be a yes anyway, and now we're hearing Alex Salmond saying that they could just declare independence kind of independently, so to speak, or he's calling for a second vote. He's not calling for a second vote because of vote rigging. He's just calling for a second vote because people were tricked apparently into saying no.
Okay, so first off, a couple of things from that you've mentioned. These 10 votes that they're worried about, this is out of the entire Scottish vote. They're concerned about 10 people who turned up who may have voted beforehand. Yeah.
That's all they're talking about. And I think in that video, actually, it actually states that that's all you will hear about. And right enough, if you put in, vote rigging Scotland, that's all that seems to appear in all the mainstream papers. Is these 10 people who turned up and supposedly had already voted. Well, I mean, that could be an error. That could simply be a clerical error or something. 10 people in Glasgow. It's a big place.
And the second point as well is Alex Salmond. Now, he's already said that he's resigning and that he's going to stand down. So what influence is he going to have over any sort of second referendum?
Well, he's only stepped down as First Minister, but he's still ahead of the SNP.
Okay.
So he's still ahead of the head of the biggest party in
Shall we have a
Scotland.
look at these videos?
Sure, go ahead.
Let's have a look at these videos then. It's plain to see if this can be authenticated. I'm not sure how, but if this can be authenticated, then we clearly have vote rigging.
Yeah. Well, as I say, the First Lady, who's clearly taken ballots from the yes pile, put them in the no pile, they'll simply brush that off as a mistake. They'll just say that those votes she put in the yes pile were actually no's, and she just realised she'd made a mistake and swapped them over, or something like that. But I mean, when you look at the pile of papers in the no and the pile of papers in the yes, I mean, we're told there's only a 10% difference, and it's just it's farcical. The big pile of no's and one ballot paper in the yes. You know, one. It just doesn't. It beggars belief.
But it's interesting, don't you think, that these clips, they were actually taken from the live coverage that was coming out on the Presley-Tute media, and people have seen it and then just recorded it off the television using their camera phones. Now, it's interesting that these clips were actually shown in the first place.
Yeah, well, I mean, the second one showing the piles of yes votes on the no table were taken from Sky News. I mean, we're not talking about somebody doing it with a camera phone. I mean, these were broadcast live, and you've got to wonder why that's been done. I mean, why would you put the yes votes on the top where it can clearly be seen?
So these votes were just resting on a table. Maybe they'd been out for a long run around the block whilst they were being sorted out and manipulated. Now, there's also a bit of footage which we'll add in that clearly shows what I would suggest is ballot box stuffing, where we see an invigilator cut the seals, remove the lid, and then take out a perfectly stacked handful of ballots, and that's all that's in that ballot box, and they're all neatly stacked together, and they come out in one wad of ballot papers, and then she tips it up and empties it, and there's nothing else in there. So
well, how did they get in the slot if they were all bunched together?
Yes, it's a very nice
How
stack.
did they get into a sealed box? How did they get in a sealed box stacked up like that? It's impossible.
Exactly.
I mean, if you open a sealed box, it should be all single ballot papers in there. It's simple.
And it looks like that's what the invigilator and the counters were expecting, because they seemed a little bit unsure when she lifts out the bundle and pops it down in the middle of the table. The counters are kind of do we touch these? Do we count? What do we do? And they all seemed a little bit surprised to be presented with this neat stack of ballot papers.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody that deals with that is a criminal. I think they need to be prosecuted, because that's obviously illegal activity going on there. Where a sealed ballot box has got neatly bundled ballot papers in it. That's impossible.
Yeah. Now, you witnessed something similar to this during the Irish voting on the Lisbon Treaty, is that right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, firstly, the ballot paper is very, very similar to the one that was used in the Lisbon referendum, the so-called Lisbon referendum, where you had the simple yes, no, put the X in the box thing. And we were voting with pencils. Well, I did hear for the Scottish one that people have been encouraged to take a ballpoint pen. Now, why would you think it necessary that people take their own pen if you didn't think something dodgy was going on? You know, but the Irish referendum were dealing with a similar ballot paper to the one seen in the video there, and pencils. Okay. Now, it was called the Lisbon referendum, but it was actually a vote to change the Irish constitution. It had nothing to do with the European Union. It was to change the Irish constitution so that the Lisbon Treaty could supersede Irish law. And as a result of that, foreigners were not allowed to vote. You had to be an Irish national.
Okay.
Now, obviously, I'm not an Irish national. And when I went down to the voting centre, there was two old ladies sitting there. There was only one ballot box in our area because I lived in a rural place. And I went down to cast my vote, as it were. And they were supposed to be checking people's identities But because I had a business in Ireland and I'd lived there for a number of years, I was on the local register for voting in general elections and local elections. So I was on the thing anyway. So I went down, gave them my name in the thickest Scottish accent I could put on, which wasn't too difficult. But and they just say, "Yep, here you go. There's your ballot paper." And so I went into the little booth and I put X in both boxes to spoil it because I didn't want to be prosecuted for influencing an election either way or a vote either way. And I put it in the box. Now, the same night I went down, I think 10 o'clock, the polling station closed, and I checked how many people were eligible to vote and how many actually voted. It's called a tally over there. I don't know what it's called here.
Yeah, probably the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, roughly, there was 300 people eligible to vote and only 200 had voted. So 2/3 had voted.
Okay.
Following that, myself and a colleague followed that box from the polling centre into the back of a van, which went to the main counting centre in the local town. And then they were all shipped off down to the county capital, as it were, the county town, local county town, which was Roscommon. The van went down. The doors to the counting centre, bear in mind, they weren't being counted till the morning after.
Right.
So, you've got all these ballot boxes going into this place, none of them sealed at the time. And they were actually delivered to the people's homes, private dwellings, 48 hours before the vote, unsealed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we followed down to the counting centre. At this point, the van carrying the ballot boxes stopped about, literally, I'd say 200, 300 metres at the most from where he was supposed to be going, at a petrol station. And there was a car had followed him all the way down the road. And this guy gets out, plain clothes, comes over, knocks on my window, which I wind down about an inch.
Yeah.
And he says to me, "You've been following us all the way down the road." And I said, "That's correct." And he identified himself as an undercover police officer, plain clothes police officer. And I said, "We're just trying to make sure the boxes are getting to where they're supposed to go. And why have you stopped at a petrol station?" "Because you're not allowed to."
Yeah.
And he just started going on about my car. He says, "Oh, you've had your headlights on full beam all the way down the road." And I hadn't changed my headlights. They were still on when I was sitting in the car. And I says, "No, they haven't." And I put the full beam on. I says, "That's full beam." And I said, "And by the way, your fog lights have been on all the way down the road and it ain't foggy." At that point he walked off. And the guy gets out the van carrying the boxes and gets in the back of the police car.
Okay.
For about 10 minutes. So then he gets out and then they drive off to the count centre, which I say was only a minute up the road, literally. And they start unloading these boxes. And there's another van there as well. And these young lads are running in and out, taking boxes in. And the vans just sit there when they're empty for 2 hours. And I know one of the guys lives in the same village as me. He's only like 10 minutes from home.
Right.
And we're sitting there for 2 hours and the same police car comes round up the back of my car, headlights on, full beam. The guy gets out, starts moaning that we're filming, police officers. And I says, "Well, I don't know you're a police officer." So he's in plain clothes. Isn't that the point? And he said, "I don't want my picture all over YouTube, blah, blah, blah." And we said, "Well, it's a public place. We're perfectly entitled to film you." And then this went on, and we sat there, as I say, for 2 hours, and these vans were still there. And you're talking like 4 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so we thought, well, we're not going to see anything here. The doors are still open at this point to this count centre. So off we go, come back at 8 o'clock in the morning. At which point, the doors are all chained up. So we're all standing around. The local politicians are there, some local media people. And the adjudicator says, "Okay, we're going to open the doors now." And we're thinking, well, they were open 4 hours ago at least, what are you talking about? And she goes, and then she turns around to a colleague and says, "You can open the other door now." So they've got everybody around the front door, yet there's a side entrance, which nobody knew about.
Goodness sake.
Which was possibly open all night, for all I know. But anyway, we go in, and I find my box number 32, still remember it. And I go up and see, they're counting out the votes. I see my vote coming out, which is a spoil vote with 2 X's in it. And the tally comes to the same as I got the night before, so that was okay. And I just said to them, I says, where's the blank slips for the people that hadn't voted? And she said, what? I says, well, where's the blank slips for the 100 people that haven't voted? Why aren't they in the box? And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. I says, they should be in the box to make sure you've got 300 ballot papers.
Yeah.
And none of them have disappeared. And now it appears that 100 of them have disappeared. And it was the same in every single box right across the country. There was no blank slips anywhere.
Wow.
And we're voting with pencils, and this box van that carried these boxes to the count centre, who knows who's in the back of that?
Yeah, exactly.
With a light on and blank slips, stuffing boxes that aren't sealed.
Unbelievable. So
it was obvious. It was obvious, and I put it to the local politicians as to why the blank slips weren't there, and none of them would answer the question. Right. And I said, if this happened in Zimbabwe, you guys would be up in arms about it. But it's happening in Ireland, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So
and
it was fraud. It was blatant fraud.
Do you suspect that the similar things have happened in Scotland in this latest round of this referendum?
Yes. In a word. Yes. Oh, so or is that no? I don't know. Maybe should have a vote. But
after
I don't know what to make of it, because I really thought they'd fix a yes, and now as I mentioned on Friday's show, they're now talking about breaking up the UK in all different kinds of ways. So maybe that was the point of it all along. But I mean, there was never going to be an independent Scotland anyway, any more than there's going to be an independent in England. They're all signed up to the EU.
That's right. So they'll be ruled from Brussels, whatever.
Well, exactly. But I mean, you can imagine if England is forced to sign up to the EU again, they have to take the euro, because that's the condition.
That's a very difficult situation for British people to be in, isn't it? That we've had this independence vote. There was a resounding no. We assume that came from the public, although from what we've just seen, the evidence is that it was rigged. And then the suggestion is that we break the union up anyway, and then sign up and take the euro.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron's on about English home rule today. What does that mean? From home rule from who? He's. I mean, as far as Europe's concerned, England doesn't even exist on the maps.
No, it's just part of another region which is actually run from Calais.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who have just paid £12 million to stop the immigrants coming over, apparently. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So where does this leave Scotland now, and where do they go from here?
Divided, I would suggest, which is, I think, part of it. And I think young Tim put something in the chat box last night on Awake about the riots. But I did read something that I'm sure it was Sky or the BBC had used footage from the London riots, trying to make out that's what was happening in Glasgow.
Oh,
but people don't seem to understand that Glasgow is a hotbed of sectarianism, and you've got unionists on one side, and everybody else on the other.
Yeah.
So you got the Rangers Celtic thing is another kind of symptom of that, where you've got Scottish people running about waving a Union Jack, and seeing it as somehow something to do with Rangers Football Club,
Yeah. Now, I did see a piece of footage which showed what a young woman who I think was intoxicated, but she was wrapped
that wouldn't be a surprise in Glasgow.
But she was wrapped in a saltire, and she was on the floor surrounded by people that were waving Union flags and were wearing them. And she's actually sat on the floor, and you see one man rip the saltire away from her and sort of throw it away like a rag. And this was part of this footage. Now, it could be that she was a Celtic supporter and they were Rangers fans, and she ended up in the wrong place because she was drunk. But this was being shown as.
I suggest that's possibly staged as well. It's almost like saying Scotland doesn't exist anymore. You've got to be part of this thing, and that's it.
Well, from one perspective, it doesn't, does it? If you're in Brussels, it doesn't exist.
No. Well, I mean, the hypocrisy of these so-called Rangers fans is that they'll wave a Union Jack at a Rangers match, and then they'll go to a Scotland match and wave a saltire. You know, they can't have it both ways.
Mm.
You know, if they want to be like that, don't go to Scotland matches. Go and watch England.
Right.
You know, if that's the way you want to be, you can't have it both ways. You can't be a nationalist and want to be part of something else.
So we've ended up with a divided country. We've got Cameron talking about home rule from somebody. If he's going to give us home rule, then he needs to withdraw from the EU, and then we can start actually ruling ourselves. And of course, then there's Wales and Northern Ireland. What's happening with them as well?
Well, exactly. And people think that Wales is a poor country. It's not. It's got vast quantities of coal. It's still underground there, and and it's a small country. You know, they've got agriculture. They've got the same stuff as Scotland's got. You know, I'm sure they could be quite easily independent if they wanted to be. Look at Luxembourg. Yeah. You know, Luxembourg's got nothing.
And, you know, and I mean, Wales isn't overpopulated at all. I mean, that once again, that's very similar to Scotland, where we've seen massive population reduction over the years.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, and yet we're told that you know, the English subsidise Scotland by the amount of £200 a head for every man, woman, and child. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. They don't take the oil money into account. That's left off the balance sheet. You know, how much is that worth? I bet it's worth more than £200 a head per year.
I would suggest that the oil money is worth a lot more than £200 a year.
Well, the oil money from Scotland was used in the Thatcher era just to pay the unemployed in the whole of Britain.
Wow.
So that's all you need to know. You know, there's enough there, and it ain't running out either. No. You know. No. I mean, China's not investing vast amounts of money there.
Yeah.
For nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, just as I said, like we can talk about oil as well. But, I mean, we talk about there's a shortage of oil. Well, you drive across Europe, there's new petrol stations get built all over the place. How many Shell stations have been shut and revamped recently?
Oh,
they're all over the place.
Loads and loads, and BP is expanding its operations now, and we're seeing more and more of these high street names like Costa, etc., and Marks and Spencer's coming into these petrol stations now and really building those businesses up. So if you're going to build up a business to that extent, that doesn't suggest any kind of shortage in the prime product, which is fuel.
Not at all, not at all. And but perhaps that's part of the reason that they don't want Scotland going it alone, because at the end of the day, it ain't England's money.
No.
You know? I mean, if Norway can have their own oil, then so can we.
And then when you look at it in that respect, you have to think to yourself, what has England got now? Because the collieries are closed, the heavy industry is pretty much all closed. We are a service industry society with our natural resources sort of cut off from us. We don't have direct access to oil rigs like Scotland does. We have a tourism and service industry here in England. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of natural gas off the coast of England, which they don't talk about very much, as there is off the whole of the British Isles and Ireland. There's vast amounts of it. All seems to be owned by, you know, friends of friends, as it were.
Yes.
All those sites have been like pre-booked, as it were, and you know, I think it's in Ireland, a guy who I'm not sure owns Irish Independent or something, owns a lot of it. How he managed that, you know, selling newspapers, I don't know.
Wow.
But selling propaganda, maybe that's his reward. Who knows? But O'Brien, I think his name is. But yeah, I mean, what's England got? It's got agriculture, I guess, but they export a lot of that.
Yeah, the agriculture is something else that's been wound down, and very much like we saw in the 80s with the heavy industry.
Well, it's been wiped out by the EU.
Yeah.
And the fishing industry, that's gone. I mean, you can't go out in English waters without seeing a Spanish ship these days, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or Dutch ship or whoever. But English people aren't allowed to fish there. You know, you're not allowed to go down to Spain and fish there. You know. So I mean, what has England got? I mean, I don't even think England's even got a culture anymore. I don't know what an English culture is.
No, English culture has been sidelined and has been overlaid with cultures from other parts of the empire.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what an English culture was in the past either. Not in my lifetime. I can't see a distinctive English culture. I don't know what it is. I mean, we can look at Scotland. We can look at all the kind of touristy stuff, the bagpipes, the tartan, and all that, and the clans and all that kind of thing. I suppose in a way that's our culture. Not that there's much of it there. It was still run by barons and rich folk, back in the day. But I suppose English culture and heritage is all about the castles, the Anglo-Saxons, all that stuff, all the kings and queens and stuff. But that's not a culture. That's an artificial thing as well. That's not an indigenous people's culture.
No,
that's what's at the top of the pile, and that's all you're taught in school. You're not taught in school that your culture was agricultural, which every culture was.
And I think if you hear about cultural events being advertised around the country, it tends to be cultural events of other cultures as opposed to, English traditional.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't walk down the street without seeing a curry night, and that's in English pubs.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what is the point of it? The whole thing's. I mean, it's the same as Scotland. Don't get me wrong. It's the same as Scotland. You get the same thing. You get deep fried Mars bars, which I've had the pleasure never to have had.
Now, I've had one of those. I've had one. It possibly wasn't the best thing I've ever eaten, but at least I've tried it.
Yeah, I wouldn't even try it. It's a particularly Glaswegian thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. It probably comes in a Union Jack wrapper. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I suppose Scotland's hung on to a little bit of culture because I suppose we've got our own language still to a degree, the same as Ireland has.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's England in itself has been kind of deculturalized because it's been invaded so many times. The different cultures have come in throughout history, and it's almost like America in some ways.
Yeah.
In terms of that, but
I think specifically when we talk about what's happened to English culture, there's a quote by Jack Straw which we'll put up on the screen, and you can see for yourself.
If that's the case, why do they have a Department of Culture? Why not just get rid of it? Sack all those people, save a few quid or euros.
Freudian slip there.
Jack Straw, the guy who said that children can't report paedophilia. Yeah, that Jack Straw.
That's the one. Yeah, the very same.
Yeah, nice bloke. Yeah, you can trust everything he says. So yeah, I mean Scotland. I don't know what's going to happen to Scotland next. I think I don't know. Maybe Alex Salmond's job's to create social unrest in Scotland between different factions. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see the next Scotland Rangers Celtic Rangers match.
Yeah, because if you think about it, we had the Commonwealth Games up there recently, and we had the Queen going to Celtic Park for the first time.
Yeah. What a coincidence, eh? What a coincidence. Just happened that way. Yeah. Funny, just a side issue. They're now decided they can't have the World Cup in Qatar because it'll be too hot. I wonder when they discovered that.
Oh.
Yeah, what genius, eh? That'll be global warming, I guess.
Yeah. Talking of global warming, here's one that we mentioned off air, but from the Daily Express, summer is to last another month, but nighttime temperatures will plunge to below freezing.
Yeah. What month are they talking about, though?
Well, yeah, because
there's literally one more month of summer ever.
Didn't you say that you'd seen something in the Express today about it was going to get colder?
Yeah, wrap up, it said.
Wrap up warm, okay.
Yeah, at night, because hey, it's the end of September.
So you must be seeing the US version of the Daily Express.
I've just got a couple of sites up today actually with all the US papers, so I'm going to start going through them and see what I can find. Right. I did see the today the Rockefellers have decided to divest all their investments in fossil fuels.
Interesting.
Along with other so-called philanthropists, and they're going to invest it in renewables.
Well, I never. Are we going to see finally the electric car? Maybe.
Yeah, and windmills.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've not seen any windmills over here yet.
Oh,
But,
we've probably got their share, but then of
possibly,
course
yeah.
we don't have the solar capacity that's available to you in Florida.
No, well, I did see something else about that as well. They're talking about Ray Kurzweil. You know, they call him a futurist, but he's actually a eugenicist
Yes.
and transhumanist. He's talking about solar energy will be supplying the world's energy by 2020, apparently. You
Wow.
better get a move on. You better get a move on.
Hmm.
And at the same time as they're blocking the sun out. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So we'll block the sun out, but we're going to have the world's energy provided by solar. But we're going to have to be careful with the number of solar panels that we put up because we could drain the sun that way.
Yeah, yeah. There's too much sun being taken up, and you'll be taxed on it.
Hmm.
They're already doing it in Spain. They're taxing you for having sun on your solar panels.
And the US are fining people for collecting water off their roofs.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, here we've got water coming through the roof, so I don't know what we're going to do about that one.
Well, I think as long as you let it drain back out again into the ecosystem, you'll be all
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, I think so. Perhaps not. We'll have the water police in your house. There was talking about Florida. There was an incident where a grandfather shot his seven grandchildren or something here, and they're now saying that this doesn't just happen in the big cities. Blah blah blah. We need to start looking at gun control in the countryside.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. But this guy had a history of gun violence. So how he had a license for a gun? Hey, how did that happen, eh?
Yeah, how convenient. But
Yeah,
once again, we're seeing the next step, which is the disarming of the US people, because once they're disarmed, then that means things can really sort of kick in. The plans can really kick in then.
yeah. I wonder if the Scots had been armed if they'd been vote rigging so blatantly. Or if that poor lady sitting, well, she might have been an actress, who knows? But that lady sitting on the ground getting her scarf ripped off her had a gun in her pocket. I think they'd have backed off.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'd have
Yeah.
backed off.
I mean,
Definitely.
this lady should have reported that to the police as assault, surely.
You would think so.
But
I wonder
apparently
why
she
she
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah, well, maybe she's an actress.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a staged event. Can you? I mean, why would a photographer stand there and watch that? A defenseless woman on the ground being assaulted by a gang of thugs. You know, you got to wonder, haven't you?
I have no comment on that at all.
Well, we wouldn't. We
Nothing on
wouldn't
that.
do it. We
No,
wouldn't do it. We wouldn't stand back and let it go on.
no.
You know. So anyway, there you go.
Neil Foster, thank you very much for your expert insight into.
I wouldn't call me an expert. I don't like that word,
Oh,
expert.
okay, no,
I
true.
use it. I use it in a derogatory sense too often to have it labelled on me.
Thank you very much for your insight into the Scottish alleged vote rigging and other things north of the border as well. Thanks very much, Neil.
Okay, back on Wednesday, I'll have a look at the American press and see what I can dig up off of that to see how it matches in with the UK stuff.
Perfect. Thanks, Neil. Take care.
Okay, no bother.
Welcome back. So that was an interview I did earlier on with Neil Foster about some of the vote rigging videos that are going around the internet at the moment, and his opinion on them. Joined on the sofa, perched, Dave Eden. I'm here balancing things out a little bit. Just looking at the chat box, earlier on I held up the T-shirt as part of the Illumi Shirty, passing on messages to you, and Sky Blue Eyes has worked it out that Pac-Man being chased by a ghost equates to haunted past catching up with you. If Pac-Man was facing the other way, you'd be eating up a historical event. Profound indeed. So there's a conspiracy theory. So if you want to pop your tinfoil hat on and join us in our T-shirt conspiracies. Dave.
T-shirt conspiracies, yeah.
Dave, what do you have for us?
Quite a lot, really. I've been looking at events all over the world. Australia, Sweden, Italy,
Yeah, I've got some
France.
Australia stories coming up.
US, obviously, and the UK, just to see what we're all being warned about, told about, and look for some sort of continuity throughout our news coverage and propaganda. I want to start off with the UK. Tony Blair on the Islamic State has made a statement today. Now, if we think back to this, if we remember rightly, that they said that we would be doing no intervention whatsoever.
No, nothing at all. No
Nothing.
boots on the ground. No.
Nothing. And then, well, okay, we'll arm them. Yeah, we'll supply them with weapons, but we won't do anything else. And then we moved on to airstrikes, looks like we're about to start participating in those airstrikes. And
Surely
now
this was just maintaining a no-fly zone.
Oh, well, yeah, but maybe we'll maintain it while we're dropping a few bombs and sending a few
Peace
drones
bombs.
in. Peace
Yeah.
bombs, yeah.
Yes.
Bombs for peace. And now Mr. Blair has basically said that we mustn't rule out ground troops.
Well, if Tony said it, then
Well,
then
we all,
okay.
I mean, yeah, of course, we all know what straight down the line, honest, forthright individual he is, a man with no agenda whatsoever.
Of course not.
And if I could say it, I believe he was recently voted Philanthropist of the Year. I said it. There we go. No
Well
cue
done.
cards, I actually said it.
Well done.
So let's have a look what Tony said today. Right, so Tony Blair has said that ISIS kill without mercy and they're prepared to die without regret. The former Prime Minister and the Middle East peace envoy has said that sending in combat troops to fight Islamic State militants on the ground should not be ruled out. Now, he told the BBC today, unless you're prepared to fight these people on the ground, you may contain them, but you won't defeat them. He said there was no appetite for ground engagement in the West and the local forces could take on the role. Now, of course, we've recently seen the beheading of a British subject, which he feels is something that, witnessing that tragic and horrific event is something that will potentially sway public opinion to suddenly we can now send off thousands of our young people to go and get killed on the ground in Iraq. The jihadists claim to establish caliphate in Syria and northern Iraq. Previously known as ISIS, the group have been condemned by the West for its brutal tactics, including on-camera beheadings. Whilst the US and France have launched airstrikes against the militants, Mr. Blair said bombing alone would not suffice. The UK government has not ruled out joining airstrikes in Iraq or Syria, but has said that targeting IS positions in the latter would be complicated. Again, speaking to BBC News, Mr. Blair said that it was possible to harry and hem them, that's the IS militants, by air power, but at some point someone's boots on the ground would be a necessary tactic. So there we have it. So basically, from we're not getting involved, we're doing a little bit of advisory capacity, we're maybe supply a few weapons, now maybe we'll just bomb a few people, to now potentially we're going to send some soldiers.
Well, we've got proxy boots on the ground already across the region. So, yeah, it probably won't be long before we see the official.
Well, it's going to happen, is it? We all know it's going to happen. Everyone knew from day one. Why these people keep up this rhetoric, it just beats the hell out of me. So, moving on to Australia. So, keeping up this atmosphere of fear, the Australian Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, has revealed to Parliament that the major anti-terrorist raids across Sydney and Brisbane last week disrupted an IS state plot to perform an execution on Australian soil, which apparently has been brewing for months. So they knew it was brewing for months, and they had the intel on these people. Why didn't they act before?
Yeah.
So last week, an Australian ISIL, or ISIS, or IS, whatever you want to call them now, operative instructed his followers to pluck people from the streets to demonstrate that they could, and in his words, kill Kafirs. Consequently, within 36 hours, more than 800 police and security agents were deployed in Sydney and Brisbane to execute some 30 search warrants. One person's been charged, and the authorities have amassed a large amount of evidence, which they're now going to carefully sift through so they can further charges may be laid. So basically they're going to sift through it, see what they can add.
See what they can pop in the mix.
Yeah, give him a door handle.
Flight of stairs.
Yeah. So Mr. Abbott was talking tough on national security, said it has been important to respond with great strength to disrupt the imminent terrorist act. Then he goes on to say that at least 60 misguided or alienated Australians, 60, in a country of many, many millions, currently fighting with terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq, and of at least 100 Australians who are supporting them. And more than 20.
Gosh,
20.
That's a heck of a number.
It is. Of these foreign fighters have already returned to Australia. Now, he's been in New York for discussions at the United Nations, and he said that security's been ramped up around the country.
He was in a tent last week.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Running the country from an Aboriginal...
Perhaps it was a bulletproof, bomb-proof tent.
Possibly.
Kevlar tent.
Yeah.
So, now, regrettably, he's had to announce that for some time to come, Australians will have to endure more security than they're used to.
Oh, no, really?
And more inconvenience than really he and his government would like. But, regrettably, because of the delicate balance between freedom and safety, security will have to move its priorities. And there will potentially be more restrictions on some so that there can be more protection for others.
Oh, right. So curtail the rights of one human being to extend the rights of another.
Absolutely.
Right.
And now I think, that's not, this certainly could never happen in the UK.
Definitely not.
But apparently they're going to create new offences that are harder to beat on a technicality. Basically, that means harder to beat on a technicality. It means basically harder to beat when that technicality is they don't have any evidence.
Yeah.
Now,
that couldn't happen. It's just not cricket.
No. Now, this may be a small price to pay for saving lives and for maintaining the social fabric of an open, free and multicultural nation.
Well, don't forget that this multicultural nation is being set up to be the centre of governance in the future. I mean, Henry Kissinger had input into the Parliament building, which is far bigger and far more secure than is needed. So they're obviously building things up and building up the
funny you
Free
should
State
say
for
that because there's more in here about that. I'm not going to go on to that, but it's just that you mention it. That around that very building, they've had to increase security.
That's shocking.
They've had to double-fold security around it.
That is unusual.
So anyway, his speech, this morale-boosting speech, has been aimed at reassuring the public that the government is doing all it can to keep the nation safe. I bet the Australians are whooping with joy.
To keep the nation in fear.
And that counter-terrorism is dominating the parliamentary agenda, with the Attorney-General, George Brandis, leading a debate on expanding the powers of the Australian security and intelligence organisations. And that's what they need. They need more power.
Yes.
I mean, good gracious.
Because once again, their police are not being built up to be the police for the region.
Yeah. Well, no, of course not. No. Well, Mr. Brandis, you'll be pleased to hear, is going to introduce a second wave of anti-terrorist laws on Wednesday, targeting Australians who fight with or support terrorist groups. Now, we all know what the definition of a terrorist is, so is that going to animal lib, mother's rights? Who knows? Because I should imagine I don't know for definite, but if their definition is as liberal as ours, it basically means anyone that looks on you the wrong way. Or
anybody and anything. Yeah.
Anyone wearing a loud jumper in a built-up area. Yes. So Mr. Abbott has pledged that Australia's security agencies will have all the resources and authority that they need. Well, there we are.
Who's funding that then?
Well, the Australians, it's going to cost, it did say here, somewhere about 600 odd million.
Oh.
Snippet.
It's fairly cheap then.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, he's finished by saying that to do such evil and to revel in doing such evil is simply unprecedented. To demand the allegiance of Muslims everywhere and the conversion of subordination of everyone else is an ultimatum to the entire world. Now, I think there's 30,500 of them in total.
Okay.
Basically, I mean, we know it, you know it. If they really, really, really wanted to get rid of them and was as uncaring about collateral damage as we know they are, they could do it overnight.
Yeah, very easily, in a few hours.
He said that when the Prime Minister returns from New York, Cabinet will again consider the use of our forces to mount airstrikes and to provide military advice in support of the Iraqi government.
Wow.
So that's the way it's been sold to our friends in Australia. Italy, not so much. I do like the Italians. They don't really give a monkeys about anything so long as it's served with cheese and decent olive oil. But Italy...
It's got to be pronounced correctly.
Yes. Our good friend and pillar of society, Silvio Berlusconi is his name? Berlusconi, or whatever he's called. Whatever. Berlusconi, that's it.
Yeah.
Why's it got an R in it then if it's a Bella? Doesn't say Bella at all, does it? Anyway, he's announced this week, yesterday in fact, that the majority of Israeli citizens are in favour of using an atomic bomb in the fight against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
Has he been and asked them all, has he?
Well, yeah. Apparently speaking to supporters by the shores of Lake Garda, he said there is great anguish within the Israeli population over the rise of ISIS jihadists. I can't reveal my sources, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that at the moment the majority of Israeli citizens are thinking it's correct to defend themselves with an atomic bomb. The former Prime Minister's comments come as the US government launches airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq, and that's where the Islamic militants have taken over swaths of territory. Italy have said that they will not take part in the strikes but will send arms to support the fight against the jihadists. Now, despite Berlusconi's statement, no world leaders suggested launching atomic weapons, the use of which has been banned globally by a treaty signed by 108. Well, if they ban them, why don't they just get rid of them all?
Why have we still got them then?
Then why have we still got them?
Why have we got a private company looking after ours?
That's right, exactly, yeah. Well, they're all banned. Yeah, you're banned from driving. Well, why have you still got your driving licence? Well,
and a car.
Yeah. So apparently he made these comments on the same day that Muslims gathered in Milan for an anti-ISIS vigil. Around 200 people protested against ISIS by lighting candles. Well, there we go then. That should scare them.
Yeah, that'll do the job.
So again, we're now going back onto the. We're going to move on to France, shall we?
Okay. Yeah, it's just up the road from Italy.
That's right. So the French, in usual French style. I do like the French style, which is actually we don't give a monkeys.
Yes. We're going to do what we want.
We are going to do. Yeah, the EU have passed a ruling on it. Wonderful. That's another one for us to ignore while the Brits carry on
obeying
everything and sticking little things to their electric appliances. So ISIS Islamic extremists have on Monday called on Muslims to target the French and citizens of other countries that have joined the US-led coalition to fight the jihadist organisation, branding the French dirty and spiteful. However, France's interior minister insists that the country is not bothered. We don't care.
Is that genuinely
what basically, yeah. They're not bothered and they're not afraid. Your mother smells of elderberries.
Your father was a hamster.
Yeah. So, distributed via social media in several languages, ISIS urged Muslims around the globe to kill French people, Americans and nationals of any country in the coalition targeting the Islamic extremists. If you can kill a disbelieving American or European, especially the spiteful and filthy French, or an Australian or a Canadian, or any other disbeliever from the disbelievers waging war, including the citizens of the countries that entered into a coalition against the Islamic State, then do so. This is a 42-minute message that they put out. I think it's probably on YouTube. It's advising that it's given some advice here: smash their head with a rock, or slaughter them with a knife, or run them over with your car, or throw them down from a high place, or choke him, or poison them. Responding to the threat, Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve or somebody said in a televised statement, France is not afraid, France is prepared to respond to their threat. Goes on a little bit about French moving aircraft carriers around and that sort of nonsense.
So once again, we all have to live in fear because people with brown skin are going to.
But this is it. So a little bit more marginalisation of many millions of law-abiding, peace-loving Muslims the world through. Very, very, very small percentages in overall terms, less than 0.009% or something of Muslims in the UK, so globally. And, suddenly we're all, it's all doom. Just this ridiculous thing, keeping us in fear. Let's introduce some more draconian legislation.
And that's what it's leading to, isn't it?
So let's have a look at Sweden. Now, Sweden is a country that seems to have some serious problems. It takes the largest number of immigrants from any European country. About, I can't remember the exact figure, about 11% of a country that makes up 1.3% of all nationals of the or citizens or wherever we are of the EU. And lots of propaganda and the so-called threats that are posed by the Muslim communities in Sweden. It's sort of been put out as a little bit of a warning. This is all nonsense. It's been put out there to frighten people in the other European countries, and what they're basically saying. That one of its most challenging policies at the moment is its response to the Syrian civil war. Sweden has taken an open-door approach to people fleeing the conflict, accepting more Syrians than any other European country. Now, this is despite the fact that Sweden has double-digit youth unemployment, there have been riots in immigrant neighbourhoods in Stockholm, that there is a severe housing shortage for new arrivals, or that the Swedish Migration Board, which handles asylum seekers, needs a drastic budget increase of $7 billion to cover soaring costs over the next few years. Never mind that the far-right anti-immigrant Sweden Democrats won 13% of the vote in Sunday's election, their best showing ever. We are the moral guardians of the world, said Magnus Ranstorp, a specialist in counter-terrorism at the Swedish National Defence College. He said a few days before the election, referring to Swedes, "We haven't fought a war in 200 years. We are righteous, but sometimes the righteousness doesn't meet reality."
Is this the nation that's armed as well?
What, Sweden?
Sweden. Is it Sweden where everybody's armed?
Yes, everyone has a firearm in Sweden, yeah. As the Syrian conflict has turned into a religious humanitarian crisis, more European countries are accepting Syrian refugees pre-selected by the United Nations. But apart from Germany, a much larger country, only Sweden is welcoming tens of thousands of Syrians who come on their own and request asylum. Some 40,000 Syrians have arrived in Sweden since the conflict began, and following a decision to offer permanent residency to all of them, Sweden is expecting more than an additional 80,000 asylum seekers in the rest of 2014, so that's 16 weeks, most of them from Syria. So, basically this tells us that, this is what we're doing. And it's causing absolute chaos. Now, Sweden has a state-controlled media, which doesn't really like this getting out, and so they don't let it get out. And the people of Sweden are not encouraged. People think, they look at Sweden and think, oh, this is a country, it's a beautiful country, and they're all so liberal and free and so on and so forth, but they're not. They are actually one of the most repressed nations in Europe, and certainly a country where freedom of speech is upheld, but not many people practice it because it's frowned upon, So, what the latest to come out of Sweden is that the Muslim immigration and socialism is sliding Sweden to third world status. So, suffocating free speech corners the Swedish people into totalitarian status and gives Muslims the upper hand to rapidly infiltrate and destroy the entire country with their medieval fascism. Well, quite balanced.
Yeah, that says it all,
It
really.
says, I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, you know,
That's fair.
yeah. Who wants to argue with that? I mean, this is just absolute nonsense. I mean, these people are looking for this. They are. This is what they want. They want this. They want this immigration, and then they want this sort of propaganda to go out. They need ISIS because it's a nucleus for it. It's making it grow. I mean, it's feeding it.
It's the perfect tool.
And then we start to get the civil disorder. Amongst all immigrant-related crimes, since immigrants stand for the overwhelming majority of crimes in the country that used to have the lowest crime rate in the world, Muslims are responsible for the main crime statistics, and they are very, very serious problems that bode badly for the future generations of Sweden. Almost daily arson attacks, violence, assaults, murder, shootings on the streets, robberies, animal abuse, honour crimes, female genital mutilation and rapes. The rape statistics alone are 17,000 a year and are so shocking the international media cannot fathom how Sweden's politicians can stay quiet and do not care enough about their own people to do something about these problems. So what's happening is this has been allowed to go on, and then you've got the press from other countries promoting this. And that's exactly what they want. Let it go, make it look as if their government are doing nothing to protect their citizens, get the press from the other countries. Now, this article that I'm reading here, I've got a facility where I go on and I look at translations of all the main European newspapers. This, or a variation of it, was in every one of them today.
Wow, okay.
So, where was I? The rape statistics alone, 17,000 a year. So Sweden's politicians can stay quiet and do not care enough about their own people to do something about these problems. In 2013, over 450 Swedish children, vulnerability there, let's all children, your children are threatened, got violently raped by Muslim males. Now, the total Muslim population is only 5%. The total Swedish population is 9 million, of which Muslims make up around 450,000. Although that is going to swell to 800,000 by the end of the year, apparently. Although Muslims themselves claim Swedish houses more than 800,000 Muslims, this hidden figure are the illegal mass immigrants, like in Palestine. Sudden flash immigration is a common Muslim war strategy. So this is a war strategy now.
Wow.
They're not just people that have been displaced, not been pushed out of their country, people that have been bombed left, right and centre by everyone that you can be bombed by, good and bad.
So these are not people that have come from areas that have been bombed back to the Stone Age at all?
No, this is part of a Muslim war strategy.
It's a tactic. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I think we need to start digging a bunker.
Might be an idea.
Which is going to be used in rapid expansion for a takeover from within.
Oh, right, okay.
So this is what's being told to the rest of Europe. Watch Sweden because they're going to be taken over.
So the people that came to Britain over the last few decades, they're obviously way behind the curve then.
Oh yeah, but don't worry, they're coming. And as we heard today, we won't mention the gentleman's name, but somebody in the alternative media was saying today that apparently what was going on, that we're all going to be dead by Christmas.
Right.
So
well, at least I know.
Well,
And it's going to save me a heck of a lot on Christmas presents.
yeah, so no early shopping. So it's not difficult to be illegal in a country where people are weak and pathetic. Oh. For example, a murderer is sentenced to a prison facility that is more reminiscent of a 5-star hotel than a prison, where hardcore prisoners are rewarded with video games, TV, pool rooms, gyms and a personal chef. Life in prison in Sweden means around 10 to 18 years of luxury. Sentences for criminals are often cut short in half the time, and when they return in society to rape and murder another victim. What they're basically saying is recidivist behaviour here. Recidivist basically meaning reoffending. And they say it's around circa 70% in Sweden.
Wow.
Sweden's bogus claim of having low crime rates are merely due to the fact that they don't really punish a lot of criminals. Therefore, Swedish crime statistics do not really reflect the truth, and that as few of 10 to 20% of all the sexual offences are reported to the police, meaning that Muslims, I'll have you know, Muslims, rape numbers are 800 to 1,000% higher than is being reported. Crime is rewarded in Sweden, a seriously sick society. Sweden is or was a wealthy, beautiful and modern country, but it has been compared to nations like the Soviet Union, and recently one United Nations report said it will soon be a third world nation. Just how ridiculous is this becoming now?
The demonisation is just getting ridiculous now.
Well, it worries me. It worries me for a lot of reasons, actually. I mean, it worries me for personal reasons. As you well know, my first wife was, she's not deceased, she's Asian. I have 2 Anglo-Indian daughters and beautifully coffee-coloured little grandchildren.
Yes.
Now, people don't see that. They don't look at that, do they? They don't look at Charlotte and think, well, she's just British, she's born here, that's what she is. She's of mixed parentage.
She's got a cracking accent, kid.
She's a northerner, mate.
Aye.
Right, Gradley. And you think, well, he's coming. And we know it's coming. And all of this nonsense, all of this fear-mongering by the governments, and we just look at them everywhere. We've gone from low level to, the Israelis want to nuke them because they're such a threat. What are they trying to do? We are trying to marginalise groups and communities within this country and around Europe, and we're potentially going to see, I fear we're going to start seeing violence break out.
It's inevitable.
And targeting of actually predominantly peace-loving and respectful people. So, let's have a look here. So, anti-Islamic advertisements will begin appearing on 100 New York City buses and at 2 subway entrances next week. This is in New York. So the ads include an image of American journalist James Foley just before he was beheaded, standing next to his masked Islamic State group executioner. The ads have been paid for by the American Freedom Defense Initiative, which is run by anti-Islam blogger Pamela Geller. She says the campaign tells truths about Islam and jihad, and the US government and mainstream media ignore it. Our organisation has created this campaign in order to educate people about jihad. Mrs. Geller told New York radio station 1010 Wins, "I don't think the truth is controversial. I think we're entering a very dangerous period, and I don't think the American people should be disarmed in the information battle space." In the information battle space.
What an interesting turn of phrase.
What a load of crap. The information battle space. Why can't they just say it is? The information it's amazing, isn't it? I'd like a motion discomfort receptacle.
I think she blue skied that.
She must have done something there, yeah. It's like saying that David Cameron is a man of obsequious duplicity, isn't it? As opposed to just saying he's a lying, two-faced something else. Right, all the ads featured a disclaimer that say the viewpoints are not endorsed by the Metropolitan Transit Authority. Apparently, under a federal court ruling, the agency is required to run viewpoint ads. The American Freedom Defense Initiative has posted ads on New York's transit system in the past that called enemies of Israel savages. So, it looks like...
all heading towards the greater Israel.
And Another one from America, which is making the papers in America this morning, which I find quite strange. But we'll have a look at it. It just shows how ridiculous things can be. So this is about the US Air Force and its anti-atheist oath.
Anti-atheist?
Yes, the Air Force has reversed course again and will allow an atheist airman to omit the phrase, "So help me God," from its oath. The US military branch has said on Wednesday. We are making the appropriate adjustments to ensure our airmen's rights are protected. And that was Secretary of Air Force Deborah Lee James. Earlier, the Air Force said the unnamed airman would not be allowed to re-enlist unless he recited the entire oath, including the disputed God section. It was the latest religious controversy in the heavily Christian Air Force.
Heavily Christian Air Force.
Heavily Christian Air Force, who bomb in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Yeah. But this particular issue has ancient and somewhat surprising roots. In the early days of Christianity, it was Christians who refused to swear by powers they didn't believe in. The oath was written into law in 1956, and like the Pledge of Allegiance, did not originally include any reference to God.
Separation of state and church.
Yeah. The final sentence came into the text in 1962, just 8 years after "under God" was added to the Pledge of Allegiance. So basically what it's saying, the Air Force will be updating the instructions for both enlisted and commissioned airmen to reflect these changes in the coming weeks, but the policy change is effective from now. Airmen who choose to omit the words "So help me God" from enlistment and officer appointment oaths may now do so. The repeated fights over the Air Force oath highlighted the fraught relationship between faith groups and military service.
It's interesting that, because in other branches of the US military, they're having criminal action taken against them if they give money to faith-based groups or express their own deeply held religious faith. Yet here we are in the heavily Christian Air Force. We're just now seeing them allowing somebody to say, to forget to say, "So help me God."
Absolutely.
Wow.
One of the major problems with being a soldier in the early Christian world was, ironically, the swearing of oaths and allegiance. For some Christians, then and historically, the issue isn't about what authority one swears loyalty to, but about oath taking in general. And the Bible suggests that Christians should simply not take oaths at all.
That's right.
And then we go on a little bit about the Ten Commandments, which I know by heart, so I won't bother with that bit.
You've never coveted your neighbour's ox or anything like that?
I have never done that, no. Never. But what they are pointing out, though, although they're allowing them to do this, the oath does, however, remain and will remain legally enforceable.
Okay.
Apparently, atheism, the US military are saying that atheism, as a recognised system of belief, is still in its relevant infancy, much as Christianity was in the Roman Empire.
Okay. So atheism is a relatively new thing.
Apparently,
Okay.
to the US military it is. But they do say it is an important question that they need to address and to get it right. So that's all the nonsense got out of the way with, and now the serious stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that matters.
I'm ready.
Actually, I've got another one from America.
Oh, okay. I was all prepped.
You know me, Al. Don't like to peak too early.
No.
So this one's Islam's theology of life and ISIS cult of death. And this is the opinion of Salal al-Mariyati, president of the US Muslim Public Affairs Council. Now this has been all of the letter news, ABC, CNN, that sort of stuff.
Right, okay.
I was looking at that, and this is appearing on a lot of their sites today. This week, Barack Barfi, the spokesman for slain American journalist Stephen Sotlof's family, joined many Muslims in exposing the hypocrisy and hollowness of groups like ISIS. He challenged ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to a debate that pits Islam's theory of life against ISIS' cult of death. In doing so, Bafri cited verses in the Quran that shun murder that even a 6-year-old could understand. Fight in the cause of God those who fight you, and do not transgress. God loves not the aggressors. This verse is about self-defense. It allows one to protect civilians by fighting combatants who attack first. However, it forbids aggression, which is a grave sin in Islam. By citing this verse, Bafri challenged all extremists to a debate that will expose their bankrupt cult of death for the forgery that it is. I mean, you know, this is, if you read this carefully, this is two things. I mean, it's well written, and it's, you know, this guy's Salam al-Mariyati from the Muslim Public Affairs. He's showing that it's, you know, proactively this is what they shouldn't be doing, but at the same time it's reinforcing the threat. So you know, he's you know, these, you know, the threat is so big that these people have to now publicly decry it in this way. And so it then goes on to remind us that ISIS is devoid of mercy, and God assigns transgressors equal compensation for what they do on earth. Those who murder and pillage will only find hell's darkness and pain in the hereafter. Never lived in Potter's Bar then. The spiritual fight against ISIS is not about reducing them to the true size of their moral feebleness. It's about humanity rallying together to isolate and eliminate this gang of thugs. Stephen Sotloff so loved the Arab and Islamic world that he courageously covered the story of for American media. He committed his life and career to covering the suffering of Muslims at the hands of tyrants. Most Americans who travel to the Middle East feel the same way. Aside from all the vitriol, political rhetoric and waving of religious banners, there is a desire for many Muslims to be heard and seen for what they are, human beings. ISIS distorts Islam and dehumanises Muslims. Well, I mean, you know, that's perfectly correct.
Yeah.
So here we are. Rolsan Sani, the uncle of Tamer Lanzar. Is it Tamer Lanzar? Lanzaneh? Tamer Lanzanev. Lanzanev is, yeah. All these Z's and things. Who committed the Boston Marathon bombing, said something similar to Bafri in explaining the motivation of violent extremism. The extremists are losers and full of hatred for those who were able to settle themselves. ISIS is a group of lost souls who thrive in war-ravaged zones and rise from ashes of despair. So, spare us, al-Baghdadi, the sermons and the bravado. They are nothing but tattoos cut into your soldiers with the blood of the innocent. You are not fostering martyrdom, but you are perpetuating criminality and corruption that has infested the region for centuries. You are a false prophet who has stained our sacred faith.
Tough words.
Tough words, very good words, very sensible stuff. Very true, I think. You know,
It's pity a few more can't speak like that.
yeah. But at the same time, such tough words continue to reinforce just how
fear.
dangerous these
Yes.
people are and how much fear we've got.
Yes.
Right, on to the story of the week. This is the important one. This
Okay,
is what people
here
have
we
been
go.
waiting for.
Here we go.
Now,
Brace yourself.
this was Richard Suchet from Sky News,
Okay.
who, on Friday, was struck by the scenes outside the Apple store in London's Covent Garden. Indeed, the release of the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus. He arrived at 7 a.m. to find 1,000 people queuing around the block, I presume.
Count them individually.
Yeah, Sam Sheikha, 27, had been there since last Saturday. 6 days. He said, last year I queued for a few days for the iPhone 5 and because of a stock shortage I was unable to get that phone. So I promised myself that this year I will be the first person to get the new phone no matter how many days it will take. His friend, Jamil Hamed, 26, has been there for, well, only for 3 days. He's not committed, is he? 72 hours. Just seeing the
worth
new iPhone in my hand will have made it worth waiting here for days, he said. I'm especially excited by the size of the screen. It's 5.5 inches. I was waiting for the big screen on iPhone. I'm especially excited about this and the battery life. At 8 a.m. sharp, Apple staff gathered at the front door of the shop, and as the doors opened, they were cheered and clapped. Then the big countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7. The excitement and tension is carved into the face of Sam and Jamel. 6, 5, 4. The crowd join in, and the countdown echoes through the Covent Garden. Those within earshot knew that the 9th and 10th instalments of a plastic handset are about to go on sale. 3, 2, 1. Sam and Jamil are led into the shop. The staff are celebrating with disconcerting enthusiasm, and camera flashes illuminate the grey morning. Now this is a PR masterclass. They've got a press pen, an army of security guards, an entire fanfare. Apple even brought in its own TV crew who filmed the action with such vigour that for a moment I thought I'd been cast in the Bourne Ultimatum. But for all the manufactured hype, there is something quite remarkable about the Apple brand. How many other companies can claim to have such a loyal and passionate customers?
It's so fantastic.
Right, the iPhone 6 cost between £619 and £789. Hardly bargain basement prices, and yet, as Jamil left the store holding his new device aloft, he declared, "I feel on top of the world."
Oh, worth every penny.
Well, so there we go.
Possibly the best sum up of that news I've seen all week. I've watched YouTube videos, I've listened to people, I've talked to people talking about their experience of getting a product this week, and that is the best sum up ever.
Do you think there'd have been 1,000+ people queuing round the block if there'd a bomb gone off and they needed blood donors?
No, don't be silly. No.
Or can you go round the block for the Salvation Army because we need you desperately to donate?
No.
Because people are freezing to death?
No, couldn't do that.
Couldn't,
Not possibly. No.
Things to do.
No. There'd be no point sending a TV crew.
Well,
There'd be nobody there to see.
so that was Friday.
Yes.
Saturday, as was my wont, I went out for the day. Drove around aimlessly,
Yes.
as one does.
Yes.
I like to go to the seaside, look at the sea. It relaxes me, it calms me.
Ozone is what it's good for you.
I was passing a shop with EE on the front of it. No queue of 1,000 people. So I popped in.
Fanfare?
No fanfare.
Film crew?
No film crew. No photographers. No band. Not even a hot dog
Did you
stall.
get an applaud? Did
not,
you get
not
applauded as you went
no,
in?
no. I've never had a clap at the seaside, I can tell you now.
Good.
So I wandered in, and as you know, I've got many phones on contract.
Yes.
And I said, I believe I have some phones need upgrading. And they said, indeed you do. Would you like the new iPhone 6? And he
And
went
you
to the
said-
back. I said, have you got them? Really? Seriously? He said, oh, we've got loads of them. We've got them in silver and gold. What do you want? And there it is. It came out, and
You've actually got
I've
one.
actually got one. So there we are. That's an iPhone 6. Remarkably like the iPhone 5, except it now looks like a Samsung.
Right.
It is no more exciting than the last phone that I had.
Can I
And
touch it?
You can touch it, actually, yes. And you can see it.
Did you get excited when you took the plastic off?
Oh, mate, I was shaking.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, less than 24 hours. Well, not just over 24 hours since it was launched, all this nonsense, to what people buy into. People have been talking about this for months. People have been waiting for it for months, and there you are. You've got this, whatever it is.
And
Where are we?
That's it. It's buying into the brand.
Yeah, well, it's buying. It is
It's a
buying.
lifestyle.
Mm.
It's
And that's
a
what we're
lifestyle
interested
choice. Yes,
That's what people are interested in now.
that's right.
And the new mini iPad and the this and the that and the other.
But this one works.
Mm.
It's a 2. It's an iPad 2.
Dare you sit on the same sofa as me with an iPad too?
But it works.
Exactly.
Oh, it tells me that the UN appeal as Syrian refugees flood over the Turkish border. Now, you were talking about the European influx of Syrians. The UN Refugee Agency says Turkey urgently needs help to care for 130,000 Syrian refugees who crossed the border in recent days.
Yeah.
The UNHCR said this was the largest influx in such a short period since the start of the Syrian conflict in 2011. It kicked off in Syria in 2011, and here we are, still talking about it. It's still happening. The refugees are still flooding out of the country, even all these years on.
Yeah. Well, you know, mate, what can you say? It's...
Just going to go to the chat box here.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at this.
There were some excellent comments coming in. Sky Blue Eyes, Mujahideen, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all the same. Changing the name is just to confuse, like Waken Up, Blackwater worldwide does every time a scandal that exposes their link to criminality and government connection. And that's from Sky Blue Eyes, always a great contributor. And mentioned here as well, Neil was saying it's we need a sense of humour, and aka Kaz is just getting theirs back. Sweden is the new world order dream state, as they've gone to a cashless society. That's right. Even homeless people who sell their copy of their version of The Big Issue, now have card readers, so that you can buy The Big Issue cashless.
Now that's the thing. Moving on. iPhone 6.
Oh yeah.
It's got this new pay system on it.
Okay.
You said Apple, the faithful.
Yes.
I don't know how it works.
It's RFID.
I don't care because I'm not going to look at it.
No.
I haven't even got a club card, so I'm not going to start waving my phone around at bored-looking people serving me with toilet rolls and coffee. But apparently, this is what they're going for. This is what they want to promote, and Apple obviously have signed into that. That's what they want to do.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, when I was in the shop, I said to the guy, I need to transfer all my numbers across. I'll just upload to the cloud thing and download. And I said, you got Wi-Fi? He said, no. I asked him if he got Wi-Fi. He said, no. I said, all right, I'll have to do it. He said, what do you need to do? I said, I need to just swap it over so I don't have to manually do it. And he went, oh, do you mean connect to the cloud? I said, yeah. He said, all right, no, we've got Wi-Fi for that. I said, what? Well, you've got Wi-Fi to connect to the cloud, but you didn't have Wi-Fi 5 minutes ago when I wanted it. No, but we've got Wi-Fi so we can collect you direct to the cloud. Apple have instructed us that they want us to promote and set the phones up and connect them to the cloud. They want everybody on the cloud.
Interesting, yeah.
And of course, this is what they're pushing. You know, it's not about this, it's about what this represents.
It's about that connection to the cloud.
Yeah. And this cashless society, and it's not been very successful, so they're now going to make it successful on the back of the Apple brand name.
It's based on the coffee culture. People who have that will use large brand high street coffee stores, and they'll be able to pay by wafting their phone near the till, and they'll be able to pay for their coffee before they sit down and pretend to write their novel on their iPad.
Pretend to write, pretend to write the novel when they're playing that silly game. Forgot it was Candy Crush.
What? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, Sky Blue Eyes has also made a comment about the highly Christian Air Force, US Air Force. Airmen still do not have their First Amendment right of free speech. So saying that oath is hypocritical. They're not permitted to speak of religious or political views, which is something that's fairly standard throughout the rest of the...
it's throughout the military and the police force, so on and so forth.
Swearing an oath to protect it, then allow the same service say you do not have the right you just swore to protect.
Yeah, that's quite believable, isn't it? I mean, look at the police oath, without favour and ill will, so on and so forth. But at the same time, as a police officer, you can't show affiliation to any political party or any particular group or anything of that nature. So you're swearing again to uphold people's legal rights.
Whilst handing over your own.
You know.
Well, this is one of the issues I had when I was a police officer for 18 years throughout the different services, that I wasn't allowed a political point of view. I wasn't allowed an opinion of any kind that I could express publicly. And I think that's what's really pushed me to get back to radio, podcasting, and now television was that I had a point of view, and you have to express it, and that kind of having to keep it contained for all those years, it's now welling out of me like a
I
fountain.
can see. Yes, I can see you are.
Like a fountain of political views.
You're positively spurting, Alan.
I am.
Nimble Horse has said that Matthew 5:12, King James Bible. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath. But let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay, lest ye fall into condemnation. Basically says it all, doesn't it? And it, like I said in that little piece there, really, should anyone be taking oaths? Does it really matter? If that's what you believe, then that's what I believe, and if you don't. I mean, do you think at any one point, anyone that's sworn an oath or something, that has got any sort of nefarious intent has actually stopped? Oh, hang on a minute, no, I swore an oath, I'm not going to do that.
Best stop.
Oh, leave that alone.
And also, when you're filling out vetting forms for joining the police or joining the military in any way, one of the questions they ask you on the application form is, have you ever been involved in any terrorist activity?
Yeah.
Which is something I freely admit to, if I had. And I would quite honestly want to tell the government about it before I joined the ranks of the few.
Well, it wouldn't be British if you didn't, mate.
No.
That'd be sneaky and un-British. No, stiff upper lip.
Definitely not cricket.
Not cricket at all.
No. I mean, I would feel compelled to tell a government of any nation, if I wanted to become one of their bully boys, that I've been involved previously in radicalisation or terrorist activities.
Have
and
you
I'd want to put it on a form in writing.
You ever heard of Bill Bryson?
The name rings a bell.
Author. He wrote a great book called Notes from a Small Island and Notes from a Big Island or a Large Island, which was about America. Okay. And he's American. He married a British lady, and they lived over here for a while, and they went back to America. Now, his kids were allowed there because they were half American. Okay. His wife being fully British. She got taken in, got all loads of questions about things, and one of the things was, are you a terrorist, and do you plan to overthrow the government of the United States of America? Which, to a fully grown adult, all right, hands up, yes I am, no I'm not. But he said the ridiculous thing about it was they had some friends, and he was a university professor that was going over there to lecture, and they'd got young children, and they asked these 5 years old or whatever they were, are you a terrorist, are you here to overthrow the government of America? It's just...
Excuse me a moment.
Just absolute nonsense. I mean, I'm not criticising the Americans there, because we do exactly the same thing. Yes, everybody does exactly the same thing. Yeah. But of course, what they don't want is anyone to think. And all of these people that are going to be involved in all these extra security measures for our protection are going to be sold along that line. Yet we're doing this. We have a purpose. We are protecting the public. We are doing this, that, and the other.
Because those 5-year-old terrorists.
And
get everywhere.
Heaven help us. Right, that's me done, Alan, because I've got important things to do.
Yes. You've got to learn your way around your new iPhone. Get excited.
Yeah.
I want to see you flushed with excitement when I come out of the studio.
I'm trembling with excitement.
Yeah.
No, I've got tea to drink actually.
Right.
So you've got at least another hour to do. No, you got 50 minutes. No, you haven't.
30 minutes.
God, we did talk. I did take up a lot of your programme there, didn't I?
All right. That's
sorry, my friend. Sorry.
Gives me an opportunity to let you know that coming up in 30 minutes, after we've finished on the TV here, Awake Radio will be playing out Cloud 7, which is presented by producer Connor. He's taken over the Monday show now, and he has been on another network from 6 p.m. So he's halfway through, and he's doing a show themed around lies.
Oh, right.
This week. 2 hours of music from SoundCloud themed around lies. And Awake Radio carries the second hour from 7 p.m.
Right, good stuff.
And he absolutely loves it. So please stay tuned for that. Click over to the radio player and join Connor for an hour of lies.
Good. Well, hopefully our producer has not missed his key, his prompt here. I think he's either fallen asleep or he's taken the earphones off.
Or very importantly, drinking a cup of tea.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I want to do, and I suspect that he needs to turn to camera 2. There we go.
That'll do it. Thank you very much, Dave.
See you later, my friend.
Okay. So, what I want to do just before I go into look at the Prostitute news and the newspapers is have a quick run down the chat box. So, we heard from Nimblehorse, Matthew 5:12, King James Bible. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, and neither by earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay, lest you fall into condemnation. And Nimblehorse has followed that up with contract, innit? You know what I mean? Sky Blue Eyes. I was involved in terrorism. I rang for Prime Minister once. Just kidding, but that's terroristic action. Well, it is indeed, because you're looking to influence the government, and anybody that takes any action, whether it be verbal or physical, or demonstrating, looking to influence the government in any way, is now considered under UK law as a terrorist. So I hold my hands up. I am indeed a terrorist. Please feel free to lock me away for my attempt at influencing the government by speaking to my minister, my local constituency candidate, and asking him to change some things about local policy. I am indeed attempting to overthrow and influence government. Therefore, I'm a terrorist. AKA Khan says, are you a terrorist if you voted for Obama? Well, anybody that voted for Barry Soetoro, first of all, does need the head looking at, and secondly, yes, you are. Or George Bush, or either of the Bushes, Daddy Bush or Baby Bush, Clinton, and the list goes on. And of course, Hillary, when she comes up in 2016, unless she gets in before that, when Barry stands down, steps aside because of his because of his personal views and actions and stuff, which apparently Michelle is going to be talking about, but I'm not going to go on any further about that because it's all speculation. There we go. So people are asking for the link. The link is being spread around. Let's have a look at the newspapers. Let's go through the newspapers. Now, I know Tim said that my newspaper review was way better than the BBC's, and of course it would be because I'm doing it, Tim. So we saw this one briefly earlier. Summer to last another month, but nighttime temperatures will plunge to below freezing. So just like the Arctic then, just like the desert as well, it's going to get warm during the day and cold at night. And Kylie apparently is worried about her career. I don't know why. She's a multi-millionaire-ess. And she's the same age as me, and one of us has been incredibly successful. Okay, so that's enough of that nonsense. The Guardian of the people, which came out of Manchester as a small, insignificant little thing. Emma Thompson joined an estimated 580,000 people in a series of protests over climate change. This was over some 2,000 cities, so that's only about a couple of hundred or so each. So no big deal. And anyway, the climate is changing, it's cycling, it's called weather, that's what it does, and the anthropogenic global warming that we hear about, which is effectively impacted by humans, is of course bunkum. And so Emma was wasting her time and her voice there, it seems. I do enjoy hearing about people who worry about climate change. Because frankly, there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to change, and And that's that. Cancer is diagnosed late in almost half of patients. Cancer Research UK calls for more NHS test funding. Maybe if they spent a bit more money and time campaigning to get the causes of cancer out of our society, then maybe we wouldn't have to worry about diagnosis so much. The causes of cancer, cancer viruses, of course, in vaccines, and HPV. Now, we were talking about HPV in the office earlier, and this is the human papillomavirus vaccine, which has been given to large numbers of girls around the world. And there was the issue in South America where many girls have been given the HPV virus, and within days they were collapsing, they were being found unconscious, and were suffering horrible side effects. And this was all down to the HPV virus. Now, it was being discussed earlier that they're starting to give this to boys, because obviously, you know, some boys grow up with the cervix, and but in particular, they had to make sure that it was very important that homosexual men were particularly at risk from getting cervical cancer. So they had to be specifically targeted for vaccine. I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. It is out there, because all these gay men with cervixes. Balls pledges child benefit cap and pay cut for ministers, but more NHS cash. Well, that's what they're asking for, more NHS cash, and he had to do that whilst playing a game of football. I think that's enough. There's a couple of other stories here. Let's just have a quick look at those. And thanks to my producer Dee Dee for marking these out for me. Afghan rivals agreed deal to share power after months of deadlock. That's excellent that things are starting to move positively politically in Afghanistan, although the situation wouldn't have arisen if it wasn't for all those wonderful poppy fields that it was deemed necessary for George Bush and Hillary Clinton to ensure they had full control of, hence sending the troops into Afghanistan, seeing narcotics production rise in Afghanistan from sort of 1% of the world's narcotics to something like 25% now. So the Daily Star, Spider Hell Girl fights for life. This is the story of a horrified mum told how a bite from a giant spider left her 4-year-old girl fighting for life. So now, please be afraid of spiders. Please be afraid of every single spider that you see. Desperate Penny Jordan, 38, called 999 to save little Elliot as her leg ballooned and a red rash spread to her neck. Now, obviously, this little girl has had an allergic reaction to this spider bite. But of course, when you see that, that basically says that you have to be incredibly afraid. And this seems to be the whole thing about the prostitutes. They have to make you scared. There's a bounty on Jihadi John's head. There's a £6 million bounty on Jihadi John's head. Yanks reward to nail killer. See, that's what the British tabloid press think about you guys across the pond. You're just Yanks. The British terrorists threatened to behead cabbie Alan Henning last night had a £6 million price on his head. I imagine that this man, if he is indeed a genuine British citizen, will of course be very scared of the fact that that's happened to him. Severed human leg found in Tory club. Why does that not surprise me that anything so vile should be found there? And cops jealous lover clue to tie deaths. Clue to tie deaths. I do apologise. And killer spider made my girl's leg explode. I'm sure it didn't actually explode, but you know, when a mum sees a child in distress and sees them ill in any way, then it is incredibly distressing. And I know myself as a parent, my kids have done their level best to ensure that I remain bald. I did have a full head of hair before I had my kids, but they're doing very well. We have 3 of them, and they're great. Unlike the sort of standard nonsense we hear about kids, teenagers, etc. They're not all violent. They're not all hanging around street corners causing a nuisance and causing and being criminal. The vast majority, I have to say, are great and are fine members of our community. Miliband faces rebellion on English laws stance. Ed Miliband faces a growing Labour rebellion against his opposition to David Cameron's plan to bring in English votes for English laws. Sounds like devolution to me. Several Labour MPs from English constituencies fear the party will suffer a backlash from the public at next May's general election if it does not agree to dilute the voting power of Scottish MPs at Westminster. Well, I think they're in for a shock at the next election anyway, because there's no way that Miliband is electable, and even if it was, I doubt many would vote for them anyway. They are a spent force in British politics thanks to their own idiot policies, in my opinion. I have no time for the Labour Party anymore, thanks to people like Tony Blair and that vile human Harriet Harman. There you go, I said it live on television. Anybody who says that it's okay to produce pornographic images of children and to publish them as long as the child isn't harmed, I'm sorry, but any child that's put in that position would be harmed, and I find your comments and your views, Harman, disgusting. Fight against ISIS is a global ideological battle, says Tony Blair. Once again, a man who caused me to shed a tear back in '97 when he walked into the doors of when he walked through the door of Downing Street, because then I was a good socialist, an upstanding member of the Labour Party, all paid up dues, and was incredibly excited that he'd taken power. Little did I know. This is why I have no political affiliation whatsoever these days. Investors pledge to take money out of firms blamed for climate change. Well, it's okay, because it was Leonardo DiCaprio walks down 6th Avenue in New York during the People's Climate March. Yes, he'd grown a beard. There he is. There's Leonardo. We must all follow him. We must all listen to every word, and we must do as he says, and we must battle climate change. Once again, anthropogenic climate change, which doesn't exist. The climate is cycling. That's what it does. It's called weather. Tradition of truancy, a lesson from history. School records of children taught between 1870 and the First World War are published as an archive today. And sorry, Mr. President, how can the US Secret Service let an intruder into the White House? Yes, somebody managed to jump over the fence into the White House. Now, one would suspect that with the security palaver that we hear about US presidents and what we see them going through, and the amount of money that's spent on securing this canyon, it's absolutely amazing that breaches of security and lapses of judgment are becoming commonplace. I'll just read you the first little bit of this, because it says their mission can be perilous and delicate. It can. They're expected to take a bullet for the president. They are. Keep him safe both home and overseas. They are. Loyalty and discretion are prerequisites. I'm not sure about that particular statement. As important as guts and courage. Thank goodness a few things these people do are more or less straightforward, like securing the White House. Unfortunately, Somebody managed to get over and breach that security very simply, and they jumped over the fence. Hence the astonishment that even in that task, agents of the US Secret Service were found lacking when late on Friday, a man leaped the fence separating the executive mansion from Pennsylvania Avenue, dashed unimpeded across the lawn to the columned north portico, and made it through the front door. And no one had thought to lock it. So he managed to jump the fence, run across the grass, and get inside the building via the front door. None of this sneaking in through a window or anything like that. It was the kind of mess up that would prompt most of us to change our home security company without delay. Labour in turmoil over votes in England. Well, I'm not going to say any more on that. Okay, here we see Ed Balls playing football and hurting somebody. That was one of the images we saw earlier, somebody with an injury. Well, it was all down to Ed. Cameron wants vote on English home rule. Now, this was obviously something I discussed with Neil earlier. If we're going to have home rule, then we need to get out the EU. And unless the other 27 members say, yeah, okay, that's fine, off you go, it's not going to happen. Private schools cry foul over medical courses. Medical schools have been accused of moving the goalposts by changing entry requirements after some candidates have applied for places. It's interesting, I managed to apparently stop some nurses and doctors and other medical staff actually going to work at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in King's Lynn. And I managed to do this single-handedly by recording a video when I was talking about the Health Secretary and how there were plans to close failing hospitals in just 40 days. And the Health Secretary was looking for, Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, was looking for just those powers. And I managed to, I went and recorded a video just talking about this story and went to my local hospital, King's Lynn, in King's Lynn, just Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And I was told by the press office that, thanks to me, several members of medical staff had withdrawn applications to come and work at that hospital after seeing my little video report. I've yet to see any evidence of that, and they've yet to get back to me with any evidence whatsoever that that actually happened. And the press office at Queen Elizabeth Hospital have ignored several applications and several requests and questions that I've placed to them since making this video. I've also been run off the grounds when I was going to make a follow-up video which actually went into more detail about this particular legislation that the Health Secretary was trying to bring into place. I was obviously saying, speaking against it in defence of hospitals that may come under this rule, but I filmed the reports and they're both available on one of my YouTube channels. I have two YouTube channels. One of them is just about the stuff that I do every day, things that go on social cam, silly things. And then the other one has got news in it, and one's called Curb the Prostitutes. That's the newsy one, and the other one is called is just Alan Taylor-Shearer. Now, this particular video went up on the Community Press Group YouTube channel and got over 5,000 views. Now, like I say, I haven't found out who these people were that withdrew their applications to go and work at the hospital because directly of my video. Because it appears that I gave the impression that the hospital was about to close, which is absolutely ridiculous because I prefaced both videos with text which said that at no time was that hospital currently under threat, although it is in special measures and the government is taking action to review things at the hospital. That aside, once again, I've still to see any evidence. But the fact that medical schools are changing their goalposts to get medical students in is well, it's not new. The various organisations change the goalposts all the time to get the staff that they want. Continuing on in the Times, if we move towards page 34 and 35, Turkey fires tear gas at fleeing Kurdish refugees. Turkish security forces opened fire. Now, when we say they fired tear gas, they've got water cannon full of tear gas at fleeing refugees. So they don't mess about in Turkey. Turkish security forces opened fire on Kurdish refugees with tear gas and water cannon on the border with Syria yesterday, as officials warned the numbers fleeing the Islamic State advance had passed 100,000 in 2 days. We saw earlier that the UN is requesting that Turkey gets assistance. Why they felt it necessary to use water cannon on these men, women and children, we may never know, but there were babes in arms there, and the security forces obviously decided that they were either too many, they had to want to drive them back. But once again, backing up that state of fear. The lowest of the low. The Sun, inside the Islamic State terror camps, birds beheaded for kill practice, non-Muslim women raped and useless Brits to suicide squads. These so-called radicalised British Islamic teens are heading over there to Syria, expected to take part in jihad, and they're obviously seen as useless by their fellow fighters, which is probably why most of them are now seeking leave to return home. I have my own theories about that, which I'm going to keep to myself for now. Naming the guard at Buckingham Palace. A Grenadier Guardsman who became an internet sensation by dancing in front of Buckingham Palace is today revealed to be prankster Samuel Holmes. So it possibly wasn't. Samuel, 20, was cheered by tourists as he pranced through a parade outside the palace last month. One filmed his antics, which have been viewed more than 2 million times on YouTube and screamed on TV worldwide. But they have also been seen by the MOD, and Samuel could face a 21-day military prison stretch and a £1,000 fine for bringing the coveted role into disrepute. I was threatened with something similar when I spoke out and sent a very short 35-second video to the BBC in response to the question of MPs having second homes, and I suggested that maybe some of the military camps that have been closed down or mothballed could be reopened and the accommodation used for MPs whilst they were visiting Westminster. I did that in my civilian clothing. At no time did I say I was any member of the armed forces, but I was indeed hauled in the following day and threatened with all kinds of criminal action taken against me for speaking out and sending that short 35-second video. So this guy is getting off quite likely if he just gets 21 days and a £1,000 fine, I can assure you. But he won't be spending much more time in his bearskin outside Buckingham Palace, I can assure you. And that's a shame, really, because a bit of personality shouldn't go amiss in the armed forces. He will kill again, murder detective warns on Alice suspect. Latvian cons in the UK monitored by email. Now this is interesting because this is something that I touched on in a previous programme. We talked about how these people with very serious convictions were able to continue residence and gain access to the UK. Now, if you go over to the US and you have a conviction of any kind, really, it can bar your entry into the US because they have very strict rules there. However, it seems that anybody with any kind of conviction can come into the UK if these stories are to be believed. A cop who investigated the murder of Arnis Zalkin's wife believes that the Alice Gross suspect could kill again. The retired officer said the killing of Rudite Zalkan's 22 was the most callous case he'd ever seen. The man, who does not want to be named, interviewed Arnis, 41, after Rudite's 1997 murder. He said his blood ran cold when he heard the prime suspect in Alice's disappearance was the same man. The papers last week went into great detail and gave us a whole list of people from Eastern Europe who were in the country or had been in the country, and it gave us a rundown of their convictions. Nothing this time other than the fact that the policeman who interviewed these people was shocked. Okay, The Independent. Labour's plan to freeze child benefit. Is this your idea of a clean planet? This is Emma Thompson doing her bit to raise her profile by going out and being all green. If you want to be green, start planting food and stuff like that. Start some guerrilla gardening. Constitutional reforms. There we go. There's the cartoon. Says it all, really. There's Alex wandering off. Oh dear. I tell you, it's all about misinformation. It's all about diversion. It's all about fear. Oh, okay. We're coming towards the end of the show. We've got about 5 minutes, and I'll finish on something that's a little bit lighter. It's a healthy thing as well. It's a health-related story, and but it is all just a little bit lighter. Apparently, dry roasted peanuts are more allergic. Dry roasted peanuts may be more likely to trigger allergic reactions than those that are raw, a study has shown. The high temperatures involved in dry roasting cause chemical changes that can sensitize the immune system to peanut proteins, research suggests. Scientists believe, well, then it must be true. Don't you forget, because if scientists believe it, it's got to be true, so you must believe it. This may explain why peanut allergy is so much more common in the West than in Eastern Asia. Could it just be that our food is contaminated so badly that our body rejects it? Could that be it, perhaps? Dry roasted peanuts are a popular snack in the UK and other Western countries, whereas in the East they are more often used in cooking and eaten raw, boiled or fried. The research involved comparing the effects of proteins from dry roasted and raw peanuts in mice. Animals initially exposed to dry roasted peanuts proteins subsequently developed a far stronger immune reaction to peanuts. Dr. Amin Moghadam from Oxford University said, quote, allergies are driven by multiple factors, including family genetic background and exposure to environmental triggers. In the case of peanut allergy, we think we may have discovered an environmental trigger in the way peanuts are processed by high temperature roasting. So, beware of dry roasted peanuts. To be honest with you, in my opinion, if you know something is safe for you to eat, then you eat it. If you know something is nice and you like it, then eat it. It's your choice. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't eat. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can and can't eat. Do the research yourself. Find out what's right for you. Find out what's safe for you. And do the best you can to find clean, untainted, pure food. I'm going to leave you with that thought, and I want you to take care. I will be back on the radio tomorrow from 7 p.m. UK time. I'll be back on the television Wednesday and Friday from 5 p.m. Along with more guests, more interviews, more great information. Coming up next on Awake Radio, click over to the Awake Radio player for Connor. Producer Connor, my son, is 15, and he's now presenting the show that I used to present called Cloud 7. And stay with him for an hour of music from SoundCloud themed around lies. It was truth last week and lies this week. He decides what the content is, he researches it, he finds it, he puts it together, and now he presents it. So I'd really appreciate it if you would join him for some music to just relax to at the start of your week. 18:59 now, and just time for me to say take care, stay safe, and to whichever deity you give your faith, may they bring you peace. Bye-bye.